Just got out of the water and enjoying some lunch. Some cold pasta right out of tomato sauce jar to get the last little bits of sauce. You can tell I've been batching it a little bit, perhaps too long. Went out with Rescue Ross to go see if we get an elk. It's another introduced species on island, and it's got a very specific habitat, an area called the pontoons. It's a whole different kind of ecosystem up there with crabapple trees and willows and a large marsh that looks sort of like the African savanna, except you're knee deep in water. So it was a 10K hike in, and by the time we got in there we realized that even if we did see an elk, we weren't going to kill it, simply because that's the start of all the work. It was just nice to go up there where we would have been just happy to see one without having to take it for meat, although that would have been a hell of a lot of good meat, and I probably wouldn't be eating cold pasta out of a sauce jar right now. This week, looking forward to having another building party with Toby. We worked on his place a bit last week and got it finally enclosed, and I'd like to do the same here. Rich and Lisa get back on island this week. Hopefully can get some shakes from down south and start nailing them to the cabin. So looks promising to actually get this place sealed up tight in preparation for the winter. It's supposed to be one of the coldest winters in the past 20 years on the west coast this year. It was sunny 3 minutes ago, I swear. I just set up the camera to do this, and the squall came in. I woke up this morning to find the first snow on the ground, although it looks a bit more like sleet. Storm had hit Alaska just a little bit north of us here a while back, and we were waiting to see if we'd get fragments, and wow, it just looks like it came in. This past week I had a friend visiting up from Vancouver, Tai. I stuck a scotch in his hands and put him in front of the fire to talk a bit off the cuff about his time here.
Well, I've been up in Haida Gwaii for almost a week with my friend Masa. It's been amazing. Got a chance to sort of surf. Didn't get up on the board, but I did paddle out past the break, of which I'm very proud. I happened to be up here during a time of the biggest storm in Alaska in 40 years. We got pretty high waves and huge surf, lots of wash-ups of giant logs, and very dramatic, beautiful hailstorms, windstorms. Falling asleep to the sound of the crashing surf, wind in the trees, all good for the city boy out to Haida Gwaii. That's number one. Number two, surprising, good, interesting, amazing thing out here in Haida Gwaii is the very warm community. They just have invited me right in, and the other day we were at a potluck. We had local scallops, we had a venison roast that was cooked with Moroccan spices, and Masa and I brought a moose stew. He got some moose off of a friend of his who's a very well-known, renowned Haida sculptor, which was delicious. And I guess the third thing would be just getting a chance to go out hunting. I figure as a carnivore I had to try that, and it was something. It was pretty amazing, a little shocking for me. First time in my life to go out hunting with Masa and actually be part of, whatever you call it, taking down a deer. It's been a great week. Would love to come back. I will come back, I hope, maybe not too long from now. And kind of envious of Masa, hoping maybe I can take him, get him a little drunk and get him into a poker game or something and get this cabin off him. I have a little envy.
The cabin was built essentially over a 3-month period with as much recycled and beach claimed stuff as possible. So all the vertical poles and posts are all from the beach, and they're about as big a size as any 1 or 2 people can carry. We've got some concrete, and all the concrete came from across the way from an old lodge that was in the 40s, and it was the old driveway, so it was all smashed up in a heaping pile, and we mined all of that. So the wood stove and all of that goes on top of all these big concrete blocks, which act as a really good heat sink actually. And the whole shell-like structure of the cabin is cut into the side of the bank in the sand dune. It's tight in the way that everything stitches and ties together and makes a little shelter.
Driving along North Beach in the Jeep, and we'd see a pole that's, that looks good and straight, and so we'd go and throw that on the rack. You sort of know what you're looking for, but you don't know what you're gonna find, and that shapes.
It's kind of like you just start building and then see what happens. You cut out a little footprint, you get some ideas in your mind, and then you just go for it. And you build it, almost too quickly. Like as quickly as you can, you just start putting everything together, put all the pieces in place, and then it just unfolds. And then suddenly you've got this space, this livable space. And it's warm, it's toasty, and it's yours, and it's all for less than $4,000.
Yeah, that's my favorite part, is that we're not shelling out huge amounts of money to build this, yeah,
It's
sweet,
fun,
funky little place.
economical, and it makes you want to build more.
I'm standing in front of Chris the Mapper Ashurst and Ellen Price's place. They'd actually picked this up from Richard, so this is Richard's first cabin. And since then, Chris and Ellen have built what they call the extension, a structure much larger than the original cabin. So it's been a work in progress for a number of years, and well, they're still working away. But they took a little time out to give some insight into their building project and their way of life up here.
We came here about 10 years ago and lived in this little 10 by 12 foot cabin that our friend Richard Haley had built, and we lived there amazingly together in that tiny little space for
3 long years.
3 long years, and we just fantasized about having a real cabin that you could stretch your legs in. We made plans on paper and looked at the cool buildings that our friends were making, and then we started salvaging pieces of wood wherever we found them, dragging logs off the beach and milling them up. And I think our goal really was to make a place that we'd be able to live off the grid and in a way that we kind of threw back to the time of, you know, our grandparents. Like, I know my grandpa had built his first home, and I kind of thought it would be cool to see if I could build one myself.
We've actually talked a fair bit with our grandparents about what it was like to live off grid back in the day, and they gave us a lot of their tools and knowledge on things like food preservation and how to use a wood cook stove and all of these really neat things that people are not using anymore these days, and they get a kick out of that. So
we assembled this cabin, and our goal is to make it warm and tight and the kind of place we can just relax after a day of canoeing. And for the time being, though, it's build, build, build. It seems to be an endless project. However, bit by bit, it is coming together. It's taking a lot longer than expected, but you know, that's okay, I suppose, as long as it ends one of these days and we can call it finished. But I have this feeling we're getting close, eh?
we're pretty close.
We're
Yeah.
close. Yeah, we're gonna tuck these walls in and throw up some plaster, and then it's gonna be time to sit on the couch and look out the window.
Trust you enjoyed meeting Chris and Ellen. They've given me some inspiration to get back on my own project. Perhaps we'll both be finished by Christmas. Maybe.